All right, we live.
Good morning to everyone.
Good morning, good morning. Greetings. I am Amin Anudi, aka Chandra, and this is Mrs. Denise with CTSO MRS Project, and we are just a baby boomer and a millennial. Today, one of the topics we were going to discuss was just having stuff. And pretty much how stuff can become baggage and keeping us down and keeping us not from moving forward. And it's just a different perspective on how we pass things down from generation to generation and how my generation views things versus how our elders may view things in the past. So me and Mama Denise was having a conversation during the week, which was very essential. And it was mainly about passing things down. So if you want to elaborate, Mama, or start it off, kick it off.
Yeah. Um, as we were chatting, and often what goes through my mind as I'm decluttering is the fact that I was sitting one day and I was just thinking why I'm holding on to these things and reason why my place is so cluttered, other than uh, kids coming by and saying, "Well, hold this for me until when," and they never come by and pick it up. And I'm trying to live my life as the way I like it to be while holding on to their things. But at the same time, the way I grew up and I was raised is holding on to things that I'm thinking it would be helpful for them. That's something that they would not have to buy, uh, spend money on to purchase. And it may be of value and luxury at the time for myself, but very useful at the time. And when there's other things that I purchased to replace that and move it to the side, is still in good quality. Thinking, okay, well then I can pass this on to one of my other kids or someone in the family. Um, and that's the way we look at it. And I gave the example of my mom was given a little rocker, a kid's rocking chair, and uh, was, I would say, almost one of the first ones to actually got married and had a well, I was actually the second child to get married, the second oldest and the second one to get married. But I had my kids, started having my kids, and my mom gave it to me. She kept it at their house for a long time, and then was passed on to me because I had the kids. And so as my kids grow older out of the chair, I passed it on to my sister because she began to, I have a kid, she have a kid. I have a kid, she have a kid. So after about the third kid and we moved into our new home, I passed it on to her because then she and her husband purchased a home. And I told her, okay, we'll keep this within the family and we'll just rotate it. And like that, and it goes on to the grandkids, and it's a legacy, it's a talking point within the family. If there's nothing else left, this would be this rocking chair. And when I found out last year, and I asked about it because I'm a great grandmother now, and I'm like, oh, I remember the chair I was passing down. And I asked her about it, and she gave it to her daughter, her oldest daughter, and her daughter gave it away to someone else outside of the family.
Mhm.
So it was a little disheartening because that was that piece of that family in my generation that we could say, okay, this is what um, we are doing, and this is a part of the Browns family.
Mhm.
So, and that's the name I was raised up, adopted and raised up under. So, but it's kind of, you look at it like that. But as we were talking, you and I was just saying, just being stable and just handing things down with you said something that made sense. And I thought about it. And it's like as we move from place to place, from one dwelling to the other, that's less you got to take with you. But what we're
Mm-hmm.
looking at is that the kids today, the young people today, everything is temporary.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no solid foundation that they look at or they look forward to having.
Mm-hmm.
So their future is always like a tissue paper to me. Um, Electronics, or you make very good sense about it. It's outdated within 6 months. The phones, the laptop,
Mm-hmm.
gaming, everything that charge a lot of money for, it doesn't have a long life, and it's done like that on purpose. But our young people don't understand that that is to keep you broke, actually, and keep that creator and that the privilege continuously, because that's what they're making their generational wealth off of the the less educated minds
Right.
and those that are less in actually storing up and having the wisdom to realize I don't need all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and that was my thoughts of it. Yeah. So you made a lot of good point that really had me like thinking. I'm like, you know what, that and that's the difference in our generations now,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm looking at it as I was holding these things as far as the jewelry, clothing, because I was still holding in my closet clothing that my mom wore when she was young.
Yeah. And
I
let
have
me
I have earrings today when my mom had, when she was growing up, because I guess I'm kind of like an old soul sort of, because even when I was in my 20s, I just loved the antique styling. I love old colonial, old English. I love the clip-on earrings, although they kill you, but I love those things. And I look at it today, and now my sister-in-law daughter, she sells it online, and
Mm-hmm.
and then the young folks, well, who's buying that stuff? And the mom said, oh, you'd be surprised, people are still buying it. But
Yeah.
yeah, so leaving it as a lineage and as a generational, it not making sense to most of the young folks today. They don't mind getting the Zara, Fashion Noble stuff you wash one time
With
and
all
you
the
can't wear it again.
chemicals and stuff in
Yeah,
there.
you can't wear it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'll elaborate on that. When Mama Denise is talking about some of the points that I made was a few years ago, I I was one of the ones who like new furniture and stuff in my house, new bedroom sets, things like that. But I noticed every time that I was trying to move to a new place, I'm either trying to figure out how to sell it, I'm either trying to figure out how to navigate with all of these things. And so, even with passing stuff down, I've always lost things along the way, except for my granny pots. Within my family, I've never really had things passed down to me outside of, like you said, clothes, maybe some jewelry items or pieces or things like that. But I'm not going to say I didn't see the value in it, but our family holds stories. And for me, because I'm not gonna say sheltered in my life, but I didn't really get to travel. I didn't really get to do so much. So now that I'm at an age where I can move from place to place to place, I don't find a benefit in holding on to so much baggage. And even though I have children now, it's just like I'm passing these things down to them and they don't even see the benefit. Maybe like jewelry, like we were talking about, but everything is so short attention span. Even for myself, if I'm in a place for 2 years, I'm ready to go to the next place. Everything is about I want to explore, just going with the flow and not really as we were talking about having a solid consistent foundation. So I know I can always go back to Chicago. One thing we didn't share with everybody is you're originally from South Florida and I'm originally from the Midwest. And so, like in the Midwest, really, I don't know much about, because in my family there's really nothing much that they pass down except for history, if that makes sense. So like
Mhm.
we have the pots, but I'm not even for sure the story of the pots or things like that outside of it was my granny pots. So for you to have like your stories and being able to be an elder and pass on a chair that, came from elder and elder and elder, that's extremely meaningful. But from, where I grew up, the stories consistently change. So for me, it's how do I create my own stories for my children? And right now, the only way I know is to teach them not to carry baggage. Because if you're ready to go on to the next phase of your life, or if you're ready to just move forward, how can you move forward if you constantly trying to carry everything with you? It's just more of an expense, it's more stress. At least that's how I've been looking at it. So I literally went into I'm not gonna say a bohemic lifestyle, but now I don't find value in having all of the furniture. I was telling you I like Victorian style furniture and stuff like that, but I no longer find the value in it. And even if I try to sell it online, you have to be so strategic in how you selling now, because everybody's selling fakes. They don't have the originals. It's just so much going on. It's like, what do you really want to entertain so that you able to move forward? So that's my thing. I'm not seeking experience, but I'm constantly always wanting to be on the move. My eyes are like a baby. I want to try and just do new things without having attachments to the old. Like I know Chicago is a safety net. My children know Chicago is a safety net. We all know that we can go to Arizona. Everywhere we've been, we have created a community. So to me, that's our community of consistency. And I think that was one thing we were talking about was, well, what do you leave for your children? How do you create a solid foundation for your children? And what are you passing down to them? And what I'm
Mhm.
passing down to them is really all that I know, is to just keep it moving and experiencing, but creating businesses that will be able to, sustain them as they grow. Because what they gonna do with these pots? What are they gonna do with, if I had my granny's yellow couch, which was my favorite couch, but the stories forever change.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like where we at with the generations, is even having conversations. I don't know if you remember, a while ago we was at a group setting and I said, well, what history are we fighting for if we don't even know the history? We was at a community meeting talking about certain neighborhoods. And it's just, even for me, what history if I'm passing down if the history has always been inconsistent?
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
baggage in my computer, which is, in my brain, that I'm trying to decipher and discern what's truth and what's fiction.
Right, right. Um, there, for me, th- there's a lot to think about. Um, um, if you know what the thing of it is, if I'm retired, so I'm very active in the community, as you know, and um, always looking after other souls. So for me, I know the past. I know the struggle that I came up on, and I know how hard it was to make that $1.25 an hour, and live.
Mm-hmm.
Versus now, they're fighting for at least $20 an hour to just live,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the basics. So in my head, and because of the way I grew up, struggling, washing clothes on the scrub board, on the foot tub. on a
Mhm.
cold Saturday morning and hanging clothes on the line, to now automation. um, Things are quickly produced that you can even buy your own computer and make things from your own house till, and everything is so disposable now, so there's it's not so appreciated, because, and that's one of the reasons why we have so much pollution. That's one of the reasons why the landfills are so filled, and people, they're worried about where now, if, because they're running out of landfill space, let alone places to build a home.
Mhm.
So that is the difference that's going on. And there are scientists and engineering, AI, and all this stuff coming up, but they're trying to find a way to recycle this and that, and finding out there's so much chemicals in what's being made today that it's not even safe to recycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but where I coming from, if I find a good solid piece of something, furniture and whatever, I'm holding on to it now. It took a long time to find the little set that I have now. And I said, okay, this is it. Because I used to be that person. I changed my living room every four times a year.
Mhm.
Anyone that knows me, and because I could,
Mhm.
got to that point. It gave me pleasure. I could, but I'm at the point where now, okay, like how much longer, you know, why I keep doing that? And because the things you buy today is just really not economically eco-friendly, safe, as they may call it. I look at now,
Mhm.
you buy furniture, they say this is on sale, but it comes in a box. You got to put it together. So
Yeah.
I'm like, in my head, like, what sense does this make? Do people realize you're not really saving?
Mhm.
Other than they hitting you with, charge it, finance it, and then you got to take it home, put it in a box. And first time a drop of water hits, so you got to throw it outside. If you want to live that disposable life, then yeah, you keep on doing that. But for our people and those who are living below their means, I really, and are stable, I think the most thing to really do, look at and invest in something that's solid. You may have to pay a price at the beginning for solid and good.
Mhm.
If you're that person like myself that want to stay stable, invest in good. I say play high low.
Mhm.
Something solid that's good, that's gonna last you for a while, that's gonna withstand it. If you got kids, you need something strong. Um, Invest in that. And then everything else, your rugs and everything else that fill the house may be contemporary. And but just I think, because see, my difference is me, I don't like moving. I really don't like moving.
Mhm. And that's the thing. Why don't you like moving?
I'm just that stable person. I didn't grow up moving.
You need consistency.
Yeah, I'm a stable. I'm a Capricorn. I'm that eighth symbol, infinity and beyond. So we grew up. I can count maybe 2 or 3 times in my whole life. That's not even counting when I got married at the age of 19, of moving. And when I
Mhm.
got married at 19, we stayed, moved to the Glades and stayed there for 8, 9 years. But we moved only twice, um, because we were waiting to move into a family building, which was
Mhm.
stable. The family was living in it. And then from there, I had to find a better place for my kids. That's the only reason I moved from out of there, the Glaze, because there was no future for my kids nor myself.
Mhm.
And we built a home, invested in something that we're looking to make for it to be stable. Well, that didn't last, but it was built stable, but it was left, it's there for the kids. See, there's still a legacy. There's still something there for the kids.
Mhm.
And then just finally moving, and I'm here, and this is still in the, I can still say for the kids, or if I decide to sell them, whatever, it's my choice. But and thankful, most of my kids don't have their own homes, so I don't
Mhm.
have that worry. I'm making sure they have a roof over their head. They're all grown. Everybody get past 25 should have their own place.
Mhm.
But And that's what I look at. Today, I'm a stable person. I like to be stable. I don't mind traveling. That's with a suitcase. Uh, and, and then coming back to my dwellings. That's just me. So I wasn't used to traveling. That's not the way we lived. So that's what's in me. Um, Now my brother, he's used to traveling. He's finally settled down after 3 or 4 marriages. He's settled. But everybody else in my family, we're pretty stable people. We don't move around. Yeah, I think that comes from our upbringing. I think this comes from my background, really. But he was a traveler. He loved searching the world. He's not that person kind of like you. No place is a strange place for him. Nobody is a stranger to him.
Hmm.
He's like his dad. His dad was like that. So, yeah, and that's where we are. But we're living in the time now, as we move forward, to be able to move freely, to declutter. So I am working on that, to
Hmm.
declutter my surroundings, what's around me externally and internally. So
Hmm.
that is my mission right now. I'm working on. I started last year, yeah, and
That
decluttering. So that's where I am right now.
and see, that's the thing. So my family in Chicago, be like, this girl is crazy. You just gonna pick up all these little kids and and you just gonna up and leave. You just gonna root them, take them away from everything that they know. So a lot of my family back home or in the Midwest, and I think I have some in Cali, Tennessee and Mississippi, uh, they all have that, I guess you can say, conservative or traditional thinking, where
Hmm.
it's like, I can travel. And with me, it's like home is wherever I go. And I'm just drawn to, so for instance, like Florida. I knew Florida was going to be my home since I was 12, maybe
Hmm.
10. The minute I stepped foot here, it already felt like this was my home. Because I was there, it was home. Anywhere I moved throughout the states, I visited, Florida always called me. And so even now with me being here, it's like, okay, this is cool, but let me try these areas. Let me see if I like these areas, and it's just wherever I go, it feels like home to me. But when I go back home, it does not feel like home to me, if that makes sense. And I don't necessarily understand why, but it's just, I go where my heart lights up. And wherever my heart lights up, that's home for me. And I notice every time that I've held on to something, it really messed with my mood. It didn't make my heart feel like, my mind just was like, okay, always looking for improvements. How can I do better? How can this happen? Da 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 da. But not being present. So the more that I look at, even with having all of this school stuff around me, I have books galore. Now my books travel with me. Um, because there's not a solid thing that I cannot pass down from my children of the history that's within these books. So my books travel with me, but even like the solid furniture, the woods and things, that's heavy, and it's heavy on my heart because I feel, even as you said, I don't like moving. Well, for me, the burden of moving is the extra cost of, okay, now I got to take all of this stuff. And I understood even like the things that you're saying about you feel comfortable within your house. It's the same thing with my grandmother. Like when I share stories with her, she's lived in New York, she's lived in California for months on, but she's always came back to Chicago to something, a solid foundation where she had her furniture, where she had, these things, and she knew it was a safety net. With me, the thinking that I'm trying to get out of, or not trying to get out of, but I've been working on, is stop always running to familiar. Because to me, when I constantly think about, okay, I always can go back home, then it's like, do I have faith that everything will always work out for me? It's like you still have
Hmm.
that, okay, if I took that leap, I know if I fail, then I can just go back home. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, what if I don't fail? What if I just take that leap, have that faith, and know that all things are always going to work out for me and always be successful because I'm constantly willing to listen to self and have faith in self and understand worth and value within self and how the universe and how God works.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took for me, really, I would say thank goodness for the pandemic, because it took for me to experience going back home to say this is not a safety net for me because my heart feels heavy. If I go back, if I'm constantly revisiting the past and then I'm reliving things and they don't always feel good, then what benefit am I having from it? It feels good to visit family, but only just for a little bit. Just for a little bit. And then I'm like, God, when can I take that next trip? I gotta, I need some space. And so I only survived maybe 11 months back in Chicago. So I left Arizona. I had been in Arizona for about 6 or 7 years. Then went back to Chicago. Only lasted, I'm gonna tell you, I was looking to move to another state within the first 3 months I got there. And I won't even say it was because, the city was locked down. You couldn't do all of these things or whatever, because I was going to do what I was going to do anyway. You already know that. You see how I do. So, I mean, I was still walking to the beach, still jumping the gates, going to the park with the girls. Whatever was happening, but we wasn't involved in it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just, I seen so much fear, so much lack of faith, that it was so, so, so heavy on my heart. And I don't even want to cry, but it was so heavy on my heart. I had to get out of there because it's like, why do we repeat cycles of conforming? Why do we repeat cycles of being okay with being told what to do
Yeah.
instead of living?
Yep.
Why do we repeat cycles of putting ourselves in boxes when we were never meant to be in a box? You are a unique individual for a reason. Nobody can tell you how to think. Nobody can tell you what your purpose or your direction was. And it was just on my heart being there. I remember it being, you got to go here, you got to do this, you got to be like this. And then when you hit an adult, you carrying the baggage and the weight of all of the expectations of family and external factors that you don't even know who you are until you experience letting that baggage go. And so for me to bring it back to the conversation, the heaviness and carrying all of that weight, it took for me to remove myself from those situations and be okay with saying I have faith in the guidance of wherever the wind is going to lead me to, and I know I'm going to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I don't want to continuously jump back into the box or my foot is halfway out the box, that to me is inconsistency. Because why you playing double dutch? Why you bouncing back and forth in and out the ropes?
Yeah.
When are you going to start trusting yourself? One of the quotes that I had put, eagles soar and glide. They don't flap their wings. You know what I'm saying? They soaring and gliding. They going with the wind. But when you flapping, you constantly trying to control and don't know how you fighting against the wind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to do that. I see how stressful it is to say, okay, I'm only making 60,000. How can I maneuver this? Well, what if you decided to move to an area where 60,000 is like 150,000? Maybe you purchased a house in Montana and it's not in that city, but it's a life that you never lived or whatever. but it's more cost effective and it gives you an experience to be in a whole nother terrain.
Mhm.
That's living outside the box and also being able to experience what the world has to offer. If you're constantly sitting in one city, how do you know what's out there and how do you know your potential? How will you continue to grow if you just sit yourself in one space and do the same damn thing year after year after year? How you gonna grow? Let's
Mhm.
be honest. How you gonna evolve? How you gonna get any type of wisdom? What knowledge acquired outside of what's passed down to you?
Mhm.
I can never appreciate Rossi Brothers, which was like a big um designer furniture that was made out of wood and velvet, all of these things, if I don't know what it is to have plastic furniture too. So the difference between the generations is I was able to experience what it was to have a solid, wood bump bed versus the metal breakdown, crackdown. So yes, I do understand the value in it, but I also understand the value in it's not cost effective when I'm trying to experience being on the go, which
Mhm.
is the same thing about my computer and my mind here. If I'm constantly holding on to trauma, um, whatever the heaviness is of the family, and still trying to experience, I'm gonna constantly bring it to the new areas that I go to,
Mhm.
and I won't be able to experience that
Mhm.
because I'm not present.
Yeah. I think some too, my thing too, and I'm realizing as I sit down sometime this time of morning, I'm usually, right now it's like 7:14, but usually before now, I'm usually sitting outside with Luna, who is my chihuahua. And I'm sipping on my coffee or my hot tea and just listening to the wind or the birds chirping and looking at like, man, what's next? See, my thing by me saying I like to be stable because this
Mhm.
is like a safe haven for me. I can't control anything outside of that door, outside of my walls, as I'm working in the community and things like that. Because when stepping out, I'm like fighting a battle and the other battle is trying to bring my people to a place of understanding and letting them see you can do better. You don't have to
Mhm.
settle for this. The way the environment is going on, administration, the government, whatever surrounds us is claiming and keeping us safe. They're keeping you in the spot you're in and making you feel comfortable enough to be
Mhm.
comfortable that you don't want to do better. Because I went traveling around the US in my earlier days when I first started into activism, and I've been doing this for over 30 years, and seeing all the different cities, Boston, Indiana, all over. And, and I used to take a group of kids with me with the National League of Cities, and we would take up to 20, 21 kids, and we would chaperone with the League of Cities. And they would meet other kids from other cities, from other states, rather, all up to Hawaii and Alaska. And they would see, and as they talk, they realize, oh, they got the same issues we have right here in West Palm Beach. They have the same issues, but the difference
Mhm.
is some of the different countries, states rather, and some of them came out of the Virgin Islands and Bahamians and whatever, but they're realizing that also their experiences are somewhat different, and each these kids all look, although they're suffering and dealing with the same environment, pretty much
Mhm.
the way of living, the issues, they realize that some of them have a different frame of mind how they cope with it.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the things we try to teach the kids, to look at an environment, to learn how to network with these adults, because as the kids you see them growing today, they're not growing up as little kids. They're growing up because of this world now. There's no restriction. They're allowed to learn
Yeah.
and hear everything that used to be only for adults. They're growing up.
Mm-hmm.
You can fight it all you want. Not to say be permissive and let them do it, but it's so hard because you can control only what's in your household. You once they leave
Mm-hmm.
and out in that world, you give them permission to go to school and be out there. They're drawn in to what's out there. So
Mm-hmm.
better that you set them up and give them that suit of armor to protect themselves and learn how to discern with wisdom
Mm-hmm.
and always make sure there's a path, a lit path coming back to your front door. So when they cross that door, they say, "Hey, mom, hey, dad, guess what I heard today?" Or "What do you think about this? I heard this."
Yeah.
And so to me, that's the safer. That's you have hope for that kid that's going to be pretty good because they're able to open up and ask for advice and not lean on what they heard out there and believe what it is that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the things I tell the kids, even with my kids raising them, growing them up, is that anybody can be an idiot. You don't have to go to school to be that. You can just
Yeah.
look at what's on the corner. And so for us to be financially stable, having a good credit scores or whatever, but I'm finding out now that's not even important. But the things of it is to travel. I encourage my kids to travel. First of all, when they're in the eighth grade, I start pushing them. What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do with your life? Because this house right here is not where you want to spend the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not what I want for you. Now it's time for you
Mm-hmm.
to go out and spread your wings. So, but I'm not going to kick my kids out and keep them sheltered and they don't know crap about what's outside or what to be aware of, and then say, okay, you 18, get out. Go to school, go to college. Be on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got a kid that you got to wake them up every day, I always tell them if you got to wake them up every day and tell them to empty the garbage or wash the dishes, that kid ain't ready to leave. Why would you send your child off to be by themselves with a group of other
Yep.
kids? And then if you visit them, someone they visit the dorms and whatever, you can't even walk in there, cannot even bear the smell. And then the kids that have been raised properly, they struggle with these best friends that they thought were just so down to earth with them, but they find out, oh God, they slobs. This
Mm-hmm.
I've been taught. So you instill in your kids the way you want them to grow up. If they shade from that, you done your job. That's not your problem. But
Absolutely.
they travel. I encourage them to travel, enjoy the world, meet other things, because there's a whole big world out there, and there's things that can be learned. Because even though I'm stable, once I've gotten up and had the opportunity, every chance I get, I would travel outside of the country. And because of the cost and what you got to go through to get out, to travel out, I would always stay like a month or 2 months, and I would
Mm-hmm.
live among the citizens, the residents. I never stayed in a resort or hotel or anything. I always
Mm-hmm.
amongst the village, and it's cheaper that way. Um,
Yep.
but it also I learned more, and it was just like after maybe 2 days, I'm just like natural. And anybody they always say you just like you've been here all the time, yeah, because that's how I learned. It's not from
Mm-hmm.
that book that people are sending or that lesson someone is coming over and
It's the
telling you how it is,
experience.
and that they're telling you all. Rarely they tell you the truth. Anybody traveling from the islands, they don't always tell you the truth how things are, because nobody wants to admit that they live in a stinky, smelly, really bad place.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I learned it and I enjoy it. And that's my experience in life. So I can really enjoy it and say I've traveled. I really have, and I
Yeah.
encourage kids to do that. You can always have kids later. Right now, I don't even encourage my kids to have kids. It's just such a world to be in. But they need to understand if they decide to have them now, they got
This
really
is what
battle.
they.
They truly have a battle on their hand, not even financially, but it's just so hard. And they're understanding these kids are just totally going to be different. But the kids, I think, it's harder on somebody like me that grew up the way I did, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in the 50s, closer to slavery time. So I understand. I know the struggles. These kids don't understand. I was watching something on YouTube, something about this. They did Black History at the school, and this teacher did one door and wrote colors only, and wrote on the other door whites only. And they end up, it was kind of like an activity for the school, and this what this teacher did, and
Mhm.
trying to show the kids the difference, and say just to see what they felt when they saw something like that,
Mhm.
and ask them what their feelings were when they first
Mhm.
saw something like that. Of course, it really turned a lot of the kids cold. And but who this gonna end up firing the woman?
And you know what? I want to I actually want you to save this topic because it's so essential for the different educational backgrounds as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I want us to have a discussion that should actually probably be our next episode or next talk is about the educational piece.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Go,
you
go
know,
outside.
your upbringing, the the different type of education that we've all received and the colorism, the classism. Like I really want us to dive into that because to me that's essential to what's going on now. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like you said, life was more private then, but now everything is out in the open. When you was a child, be seen and not heard when you in an adult's place. Now it's okay, if you seen, you could be in the conversation type situation. So I definitely want to talk about that as far as your upbringing, my upbringing, having children, you know, having grandchildren, the educational background, and just the transitions and things that you have seen over the years and your
Mm-hmm.
experiences within this area. But before we actually close out, if you could take a moment to talk about your community day that's coming up or our community day for Pinewood Park. So if anybody's in the area that's watching this, they can come on out and then give a little backstory as to why we do community days.
Okay, this will be our third annual community day, and thank you for really joining us and being a part of this. You are truly that little driving force when I'm just kind of like feeling exhausted and don't want to do this again. Um, but our community day is, I'm also the president of the Pinewood Park Neighborhood Association here on the north end of West Palm. And after '08, our neighborhood became devastated with the downfall of real estate, home ownership, and just a group of lawyers and co-ops came in and bought up a lot of the properties, which left sometime one actual homeowner on the block, and the rest is
Mhm.
all. So it's been a struggle to bring the community back, but I think we're doing a really good job of bringing it back. What is liking now that we're 70% transient in this community is to bring communication back to. When I first moved over here in the 90s, there was that diverse culture of people here, and it was very quiet, and we were all real neighbors. We looked after each other, help with the lawn work, anything that needed to be helped. If someone needed something to eat, there was never a problem with. My friend, he would cook every Sunday, always supplied meals, enjoyed feeding people. And it's not because they was homeless or anything. We just share food. um,
Mhm.
so now what I'm trying to bring back is that communication of neighbors knowing who is next door to them. And I think that brings with that, it brings communication, it brings quality of life back. Because now it's like, okay, well, I need help with my lawn or like my exterior of my property. And if you see someone struggling, you don't have a problem connecting and doing and helping out. And see if someone is an elderly that's living next door within the community, we're aware of who is sick, what's going on in our community, and that's the way we used to be. So now just want to bring that back, that and just really just that day we want to take this year, April the 6th, 2024. The time is from 1 to 4, and come out, just have a great time, communicate, meet your neighbors, eat, just laugh and have fun. There will be we're hoping to bring in a lot of food trucks, vendors, along the outskirts, and to have actually a musical band that comes in. So we're working on that, a drum line. And also, we're doing, I'm really excited about having entrepreneurs from the community to come in and set up sort of like an expo in the Boys and Girls Club gym.
Yes.
And this address to this would be along Pinewood Road, the Boys and Girls Club. There's 4105 Pinewood Road. And we're adjacent to the Pinewood Community Park. So everything would be outside in the park and inside of the gym. So we're looking at entrepreneurs. Our entrepreneurs will be adults as well as youth. So we're hoping to bring them out. There's also to be a fashion show to be given, and we're going to be crowning Mr. and Mrs. Pinewood Community,
Mm-hmm.
Queen and King of the day, and those for our youth. We're sending out flyers, hopefully within the next couple of days, to all of our businesses and residents, and making it known, being publicized here. So it's going to be a great day. There will be free food for our youth, hot dogs, hamburgers provided by the police department, who's very supportive of us, and our Q dogs. Our, so our Qs will be supporting this effort. So we're asking everyone to come out and enjoy the day, just have a great time and mingle. If you have a business and you want to be involved, please contact me at 561-236-4818. 561-236-4818. We also are looking for anyone for donors. For donor, you want to donate, sponsor an activity. We're truly looking forward to that as well. Did I miss
Yeah.
it?
Nope, that was perfect.
Okay.
So free food, entertainment, know thy neighbor, which is very important. And you get to see a little bit of the history of West Palm Beach Pinewood community. So we look forward to seeing you guys,
Mhm.
and tune in for next week, Tuesday, where we'll be talking about the different generations in education. Thank you again for tuning in with Mama Denise and myself, Amin Anudi, aka Chandra, on Just a Baby Boomer and the Millennial Talk. All right.
All
Bye bye for now. You know, I don't know how to log out.
right. Go down to the bottom. To the bottom.
Uh
It's now
huh.
because it got me as a guest, so I can't control anything.
I don't know why it does that.
This app says I'm only in as a guest. I saw that this morning.
Oh, I see it in recording. All right, y'all. We got it. We gonna get
Okay.
it. We gonna get it.
So you're gonna edit this before turning it off, and okay, okay. So